I'm super excited to show you the construction of this chair. It's a classic design with a pure white glossy frame and a very charming warm seat. The chair's seat is seamless, which makes cleanup very easy. The beauty of this chair is in its simplicity, and the quality will ensure that it will last for years. So follow along as I demonstrate the process of building this chair, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks. I started the project by cutting down 2x6s on a table saw to stock that I could use for the chairs. I cut the long stock down to just 18 inches in length using a stop block on the miter saw. I cut an 8-degree miter for use on the front leg on a table saw sled. Part A received a miter cut on both ends, which I used a stop block to get consistent lengths. The supports which connect the two chair side assemblies are cut to length using the table saw sled with a stop block. I cut part B down from 1 by 1.5 inch stock. I cut an 8-degree miter on part B for where it connects to the back of the leg. The most complicated part of the chairs is the back leg. I started with 42-inch long 2x6s and shaved off one side for good square reference. Using an angle cutting jig and a stop block, I made cut number 2. Then I adjusted the angle cutting jig and made cut number 3, being careful not to cut too far down the leg. Then I cut the upper back of the back leg for cut number 4. Cut number 5 requires some planning because it's not at a specific angle, but rather an arbitrary line from point A to point B. I established where point A is with a 6-inch steel ruler and a small square. I located point B, which is perpendicular to the face of the back leg. I used a straight edge to draw a line between these points. I set up the cutting jig to make this cut using a reference point on the fence and a consistently measurable point on the chair leg. Again, making sure that I didn't cut too deep down the leg. The top of the back leg was cut on the miter saw using a stop block on the left. The final cut for the back leg is to finish cutting between the cuts from the table saw using the bandsaw. I cut just a little away from the line. The table saw blade and the bandsaw blade left a little material that still needs to be removed. I used an oscillating spindle sander to do this task. In order to smooth out the back of the leg, I used a random orbital sander to level and flatten out that area. Once that was smoothed out, I rounded all of the edges of the chair pieces using 80, 120, and finally 150 grit sandpaper. Parts C and D connect the two chair side assemblies. Part D has an 8-degree long bevel where it supports the seat slab. Part C is rectangular with no miters. The seat back rails measure 1 inch by 4 inch and are cut down from 2x6s. I cut one side and then set the fence for 4 inches. Then I long ripped to get the board down to 1 inch in thickness. Squaring off the end first, I then cut them to length using a stop block. With all of the pieces of the chair cut, sanded, and pocket holes drilled, I began assembling the sides. I carefully made an assembly and then used that as a template to screw together the rest of the assemblies. Once the side assemblies were done, I used a biscuit joiner to cut the biscuit slots in the back legs. I used the seat as a reference and marked the placement of the biscuits on the work table. I used a thin piece of plywood so that the chair rails would not be flush with the face of the back leg. I cut the biscuit slots in the back rails without using the plywood spacer, and the vacuum cleaned out all of the slots of any sawdust. After gluing the back rails and biscuits, I used one clamp to hold the chair sides together. I put the front cross member on using some square clamping jigs, and I put a pocket screw in each side. Then I removed the clamping jig and finished screwing that side, and repeated that step for the other side. I used a scrap 2x material and some 3-inch spacers that I cut to get the back rail spaced out accordingly. Then I clamped them down tight. I finished the chair assembly by screwing the back cross member. I left the clamps on the back rails for 30 minutes to let the glue dry. The seat slab started as 2x6s, and I removed 1/8 of an inch of material from each side to get the square edge for the middle pieces. All of the seat slab pieces had 2 pocket holes on each joined edge. I spaced them out so that they are staggered and don't overlap with the adjoining piece. I glued the joined edges and used a square to start with a good edge. Then I clamped them together but used scrap wood so the clamps wouldn't dent the seat slab. I then sandwiched the seat on each end so that it was as flat as possible. I screwed the boards together with 2.5-inch pocket hole screws. After removing the clamps, the seat slab assembly is complete. I cut the back of the seat at an 8-degree bevel where it meets the back of the chair legs. I routed all of the edges of the seat and sanded it from 80 grit to 220 grit. After wiping all of the seats with Minwax pre-stained wood conditioner, I brushed on Rust-Oleum Kona Color wood stain. After letting that stain set for 10 minutes, I rubbed the excess stain off with a rag in the direction of the grain. The underside of the seat hangs over the chair just under 1/2 inch. I treated this area with the same procedure as the top side. I applied 2 coats of polyurethane with a light sanding between the coats. I used painter's tape to mark off the area to be painted white. I used an oil-based primer so that I could apply a latex enamel over top of the oil-based stain. The stain was dark enough that I had to use 2 coats of the primer. I painted on 2 coats of the high gloss white enamel. I carefully removed the blue tape from the bottom of the seat. After letting this paint dry, I was ready to work on the top and sides. I made a spinner to set the seats on while I applied the polyurethane. I brushed on 3 coats of poly to complete the seat construction. I first painted the underside of the chair frame. I then set the chair on the spinner and painted 3 coats of high gloss white enamel. After allowing the chair frame to dry, I screwed the seat on using pocket screws. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you're interested in seeing the companion farmhouse style table, just click right here and you can see the construction of that table. Also, if you click on the subscribe button right there, you'll be able to get emails whenever I upload new videos of new projects. Thanks again. Did you subscribe yet?